Hello and welcome to the Linux section. Linux is the foundation on which DevOps and this course stands. You need to be at your absolute best in this section. If you are a Linux administrator, you can skip this section, but if you are not, you need to master this section. This section is created keeping efficiency in mind. You will be learning a lot of Linux in very less time. Let's see the content. So we're going to introduce Linux, going to talk about what is Linux really, basics command like copying files, moving file, directories and stuff like that. We'll understand Linux file systems and the text files also, how to edit the files, how to change the files, file permissions, stuff like that. We'll see filters and redirection, which I feel is a really very important topic for a DevOps. We'll see users and groups in Linux. We'll see what is sudo and how to use it. We'll see software management like RPM, Debian, yum, apt, etc. etc. We'll see services and processes in Linux. And we'll see a lot of commands which will be good to know being a DevOps or any Linux guy. We'll be doing some server management. We'll be setting up web servers and database servers on our Linux VMs. So we'll be working basically in these four areas in Linux. One, we'll understand commands, files, softwares, and servers. And you should be really good in these four areas. If you're in IT industry, you must have already heard the word open source. If you're not aware about open source, you may generally think open source is about free softwares. But open source is much more than that, and it's not just about free software. Even some open source software are not free. Well, I totally believe that today in the IT industry, we have progressed so much because of open source softwares. Yes, that's true. If you go back and look at the open source history, you'll understand that. Most of the popular software that you must be using is either open source or it used to be open source. So what really is open source? Basically, open source is the code freely available, the code which was used to create the software. That code is freely available for anybody to inspect, modify, enhance, and then redistribute. So if you're creating a software and you made it open source, you can expect people around the world to contribute to your software, make it much more better and more secure, more enhanced. And that way other people also become contributor to your open source project. Now compare that with a software that is developed by an organization, a company, where you have some few brilliant heads, let's say 5-10 people working and creating a software. Compare that with open source software where you will be having hundreds or even thousands of people contributing to a software. So that's what open source softwares are. It just doesn't mean it's free. That's a common misconception. Now, Linux is an open source operating system, or should I say open source kernel. In 1984, the open source version of Unix utilities came in. Unix I'm talking about, which was distributed under GPL license. In 1991, a guy named Linus Torvalds, who really changed everything in the IT industry, literally, this brilliant mind created a Unix-like kernel and made it open source. He made the kernel open source. It was a kernel which was similar to Unix. Also ships with it some GNU utilities, the tools. And after that, brilliant minds around the world started using that kernel, which is called as Linux kernel, and started developing some utilities around it to create a complete operating system. So in today's time, when you talk about Linux operating system like CentOS or Ubuntu or Kali Linux or Debian or Red Hat Linux, they are using the same Linux kernel. Of course, it's upgraded now. So let's say Red Hat has took that kernel and created its own utilities, packaging system, and created a complete operating system, which we call it as Red Hat Linux. And there are Red Hat Enterprise Linux, there's CentOS Linux, there's Fedora Linux. Same way Canonical created Ubuntu, then you have Debian, then you have OpenSUSE. And now there are lots and lots of Linux operating system. An Android phone is Linux. So it all happened because of Linus Torvalds, who gave us the Unix-like kernel, which we call it as Linux kernel. Let's see some Linux principles which are very important for anyone to understand, and especially for DevOps. Linux, everything is considered as a file, including the hardware. Your mouse, your keyboard, printer, everything will be considered as a file by the Linux operating system. And we can literally see that file. And when I say file, it just doesn't mean the text file, it could be any other file, which we'll understand later. In Linux, we have small single purpose programs. We don't have bulky programs. We do have, but very rarely. Mostly we have small single purpose programs. And there will be an ability to chain these programs together to perform complex operations. That may really sound similar to continuous delivery, continuous integration, where we have small programs, small automation, we combine them together to perform more complex pipeline operations. We avoid captive user interface in Linux. That means we don't like the graphical softwares, next, finish, done, right? If you open a software or any tool and it is waiting for user input, that means it has captured the user interface. The user has to be there and click or write something so the program can continue. We are going to avoid that in this course also, and being a DevOps also, you should avoid those things. Otherwise, it's difficult to run things in the background or automate such things. Configuration data are stored in text file in Linux, which is very good being a DevOps for us, so we can very easily make changes to the files. We don't need to go to, say, settings and tabs and advanced tab, right? So very easily we can change settings. So why Linux? It's a really very broad question. Why Linux for DevOps, or why Linux for server, or why Linux at all? Okay, first of all, it's open source. Okay, so you get huge community support, you get new updates. It supports a wide variety of hardware. You must have already seen that. It runs on your phone, it runs in your laptop, it runs on your server, and different other hardwares of the servers or desktops. And there's a lot of customization you can do in Linux operating system. Most of the servers out there are running Linux operating system, even some of the very popular supercomputers. Automation is so easy to do it on Linux compared to, let's say, Windows. Now Windows is also catching up now. You have PowerShell and new things are coming up. But when it comes to Linux, there are many ways to automate one thing in Linux. And Linux is considered as a secure operating system compared to Microsoft Windows. But that could be a debatable topic, and I would leave that up to you. Okay, let's see architecture of Linux, a high level view. Very simple. You have the hardware, which is your compute resource, your RAM, CPU, network, right? That's the compute resource, hardware. On top of that, there will be kernel. In your Linux operating system, you'll have Linux kernel, which will read or understand the hardware and can pass signal through to and fro to your hardware to shell. From shell, you can execute commands and expect a return. And you should also have a lot of tools built around your Linux kernel, which you can use, starting from very simple commands like cd or vi or cat or ls to all the way to graphical softwares also, like browsers, readers like PDF readers. So user will connect to these tools, which in turn will send the information to the kernel, and that's the kernel that Linus Torvald has developed. Okay, let's see some popular Linux distros on the desktop side. Desktop, right? If you want to install it on your laptop or on your desktop. Some popular name, they really changes, usually the most popular one is Ubuntu Linux or Linux Mint, or you can just Google top 10 Linux distros. Right, you'll find that the latest one. And again, you have your own preference also. Ubuntu Linux is the most popular one. Then you have Linux Mint, which is also very easy to use. Arch Linux you have, Fedora Linux you have from Red Hat, and then you have Debian. and OpenSUSE. So you can try and use this operating system on your laptop. I really recommend you do dual boot and you use Linux operating system as much as possible for your desktop needs. And that way you will become very comfortable with Linux systems. So these are desktop, but we are focusing more on server. So popular server Linux operating system. The most popular name is Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is obviously from Red Hat. This is considered as the most stable and secure Linux operating system, and it is not open source. There is licensing for it. Then you have Ubuntu Server, which is open source and quite popular and my personal favorite. I would say this is the easiest Linux operating system, but some people will disagree with that in terms of security, and we'll discuss that. Then you have CentOS, which is similar to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but it is open source. CentOS and RHEL are almost similar, but CentOS is open source, Red Hat Enterprise Linux is not. Then you have SUSE Enterprise Linux. You have few more names, but these are the popular one. Now I will take you to Wikipedia to show you the list of all the Linux operating system we have today. So you can open this site, list of Linux distribution in Wikipedia. So you have first the RPM based, and then you have Debian based, then you have Pacman based, Gentoo based. These are different packaging methods. So RPM based, Red Hat Linux, CentOS, Fedora, OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE is also RPM based. In CentOS again, ClearOS, Miracle Linux, Oracle Linux, which is Oracle Linux is similar to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Amazon Linux, will be using Amazon Linux also when you start using EC2 instances. Fedora based, you have a lot of names you have there. OpenSUSE based, you have, these are popular names. Okay, we are just still in the very upper side of the page. Debian based, Backtrack, which I don't think it's anymore. You have Kali Linux. This is used by the penetration testers. Ubuntu, then you have Kubuntu, Lubuntu, Xubuntu, Edubuntu. These are all Ubuntu based, and Ubuntu is Debian based, so it's similar to Debian operating system. Bodhi Linux Elementary OS, which I used for desktop. It was nice, like Mac OS. Linux Mint. You have many operating systems, Linux operating system. You can keep scrolling and reading about them. So why I'm showing you all this? So really I want to show you the scale of Linux operating system, the flavors. These are called as flavors of Linux. So there are many Linux flavors out there. Like also your Android is Linux. So I don't want you confuse more with many Linux operating system, but I want to show you there are many available. But if you're working in IT industry, you will see two popular names. One is RPM based and the other one is Debian based. RPM based, you have RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, CentOS, Oracle Linux, and now you also have Amazon Linux, which is on AWS. And then you have Debian based, Ubuntu Server, Kali Linux, and there are many names in Debian operating system. The major difference between these two family of operating system is the packaging method of the software. That's where the difference start. RPM based means you have a software which is packaged in RPM format. Like you have exe, msi, apk, like that is RPM and deb for Debian. So before I make you understand the difference between these two family, let me tell you which one will be used when. So Red Hat is considered as stable and secure operating system, especially Red Hat Enterprise Linux. You cannot download and install, you should not download and install software in RHEL Linux from outside. You download it only from Red Hat repository. So Red Hat is going to test all the softwares and packages before it releases it to its users. Like Apple, okay, which will test the softwares very thoroughly for any security or for any performance flaw. But then you have Debian based. Here you get lots and lots of softwares very easy to install, very easy to set up. It focuses more on user friendliness. So if you need latest and greatest and open source software, you go with Debian based like Ubuntu. So I'll tell you my personal preferences. If I want to run servers, I will prefer Red Hat operating system. If I want to use it for DevOps, for some automation purpose, I will be using Ubuntu. because I may need latest and greatest libraries and softwares to do some automation. And I don't want to get into software installation problems. So I'll prefer Debian based for DevOps purpose and Red Hat based for server based. Again, it's your choice, but you can do either of it on any of the operating system. There is no hard and fast rule, but that's a general mentality. So these two popular family are used in IT industry, RPM based or Debian based. Again, as I said, there will be packaging difference first to start with, but then there are more command differences. So RPM based will have software that ends with RPM, and Debian will have software that ends with Deb. So Debian software, let's say you want to install Google Chrome, so package name will be something like this: Google's Chrome, some blah 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 version .deb. If you want to install it, the command will be dpkg-i and the package name. Sure, there are many ways of installing a software in Ubuntu or Debian, but this is a very manual way. Same thing, if you want to install Google Chrome on a Red Hat machine, then you will have software named Google Chrome, some version .rpm, Red Hat Package Manager. And to install, the command will be different, rpm-ivh. There we had dpkg-i. So you see, the packaging is different, so then the commands are also different, then their file names will be different. Like that, you will see many differences then. In our day-to-day life, we'll see difference between commands. So being DevOps, you should be comfortable in any Linux operating system. Okay, now let's get started with basic commands of Linux. But before we do that, one last thing, we'll understand the directory structure in Linux. We'll log into the Linux VMs, Linux operating system, and see all these directories. But to get started with some important directories, home directories, every user in Linux will have its home directory. Now directory means really folders. If you're from Windows background, you'll call them as folders, but now we call them as directories. Root user is the admin user, all powerful user in Linux, and its home directory will be /root. A normal user's home directory will be /home/username. Like Vagrant user, the home directory will be /home/Vagrant. User executable commands, generally, the commands that we are running, ls, cat, pwd, these commands, right, will be located in /bin or /user/bin, or you can have them placed into /usr/local/bin. These commands will be executed by normal user, but for root user, the commands will be located in /sbin. So these commands can be only executed by root user, like installing a software, RPM command, or dpkg command, or yum or apt command, or adding a user, like user add command. So such kind of system admin commands will be located in /sbin or /usr/sbin, or you can create your own commands in usr local sbin. If you connect some external device like USB drive or CD, it will be automatically mounted either on /media or /mnt. Configuration data will be stored in /etc, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of time. Like network configuration, server configuration, user configuration. All the configuration, most of the configuration will be in /etc. Any temporary data you want to keep, it will be, you can put it in /temp. It's temporary, right? There's a chance of that getting deleted when you reboot, so be careful with that. Kernel and bootloader is located in /boot. Server data, here also we'll spend a lot of time, /var or /srv. Like a website, web server you're running, so website files, you're gonna put them into /var, www, html, something like that. Or MySQL data, var lib MySQL directory. Okay, so mostly the server data will be in this directory. System information will be stored in /proc or /sys. Popular libraries will be stored in /lib, usr-lib, or usr-local-lib. Okay, now let's get into our Linux machine, our VMs, and see all this directory structure. Okay, let's open git bash and bring up our VM, or if you have not yet created the VM through Vagrant, you can create it now. So my Vagrant file is in F drive, Vagrant VM CentOS 7. So get into your directory where you have created the Vagrant file. If you have not yet created, then run the command vagrant init, and the box name, I already have the vagrant file. With the box girlingai /CentOS7. I already have the VM created, so I'm just going to say vagrant up here. Or if you have manually created VM, that is also fine for now. But to begin with, we need a CentOS VM for now. Okay, my VM's up. I'm going to log into it, vagrant SSH. I am in. I will clear the screen. Okay, now 4 very basic commands. First, who am I? See what user you are. It says vagrant user. PWD, present working directory. It will show you where you are. So vagrant user is in vagrant's home directory /home/vagrant. ls command to see what is there in the current directory. There's nothing. And a cat command to read a file. We are going to read a file which is etc os release. This file will tell you in Linux which operating system it is, CentOS Linux, and what version. Now I'm going to switch to root user, and you can do that by running the command sudo -i. Vagrant user has privilege to switch to root user, and we are going to use that. Sudo -i, hit enter, and now you will be root user. Check, who am I? PWD /root, that's the root user's home directory. ls, there are 2 files here. These are text files. Now you can also read the prompt. This is called as the prompt. That is for a vagrant user. When we logged in, we see the username @ the host name. And then we have a dollar symbol that represents it's a normal user, not the root user. If we check for the root user, you will see the prompt root is the username @ the host name, and a hash that represents it's a root user shell. There's also one more small symbol. This is called as tilde. If you see this symbol in the prompt, that means you are in your home directory. For root user, that's /root. For a vagrant user, that is /home/vagrant. Okay, now I'm clearing the screen. Now let's understand the directory structure. cd /, this is called as the root directory. / is the root directory. And if you do ls here, you will see all the directories or files that you have in this Linux operating system. This is the top level directory of Linux operating system or any Nix operating system. So you should see here a root, that is the root user's home directory. You should see a home directory. Inside that you'll have users' home directories. You see etc for configuration, boot directory where you have bootloader and kernel. You see media /mnt for mount points, /opt, it's an optional directory and we'll be using that later. So home directory /root for root user, normal user /home/username. User executable is in /bin. This bin directory. So we are already here in the root directory. We can just do cd bin. If you're somewhere else, you can do cd /bin. Okay, you're giving the absolute path. This is called as absolute path. Absolute path always begins with the root directory. In /bin, if you do ls, you should see a lot of files. These are mostly the user executable programs, like mv is to move files, scp to copy files to remote Linux machines, yum, and you'll see many more. You'll see all your commands that you're using as a normal user here, like who am I, pwd. So these are user executable programs. If you go to /sbin, these are the programs that are executable by root user. Like for example, mkfs.ext4, this is for formatting partition, which cannot be done by the normal user. reboot command to reboot your operating system. This can be executed by normal user also, provided you give sudo, and many other system executable commands. So user executable, system executable. Let's see the configuration directory. /etc, and you should see here the configuration files and directories. Like host name, if you want to change the host name, you can see this file. You can give the complete path /etc/host name, and you should see the current host name. If you want, you can edit this file and change it. We'll be learning that, how to edit files through vim editor. Yum configuration, which is the package manager in Red Hat machine, like you have Google Play Store on your Android phone, like that. Networks configuration, and so many other configuration files. We'll be seeing a lot of files from this directory. Temporary files /temp. We'll be using these directories also, especially when we write scripts. When you want to put some temporary data, we'll put it in /temp directory. And most of the automation tools, so many tools, when they are doing some operation, they need some files for temporary purpose, they'll use /temp directory. Do not store anything over here which you want to use later. This is just for temporary purpose. /boot, kernels and bootloaders. cd/boot. So that's your bootloader, Intra MFS, VM Linux, that's your kernel. And there's a grub directory inside this where you'll have the configuration for booting, grub2. This you get it more into system administration. You need to change the booting parameters, the kernel version, stuff like that. Then you can use these configurations. /var or /srv to store the server data. We'll be seeing that later. System information /proc/sys. Let me show you one example from this. If you are anywhere in the Linux system and if you want to come back to your home directory, you can just say cd and hit enter. You'll come back to your home directory. From here, let's go to /proc, and you will see some files over here. These are dynamic files mostly. They'll be changing based on the system information. Like for example, there is a command called uptime, which will read how long the system is up and running. So the system is up from past 13 minutes. It will show you how many users are logged in and the current load average. We'll understand load average later. But what I want to point you here is, this is a command that reads information from this file. You should see uptime file here that will have some information, /proc/uptime, but it may not be user readable. Or you have command like free-m, which shows you the RAM size. And these things are dynamic, these things changes. And that's why content in this directory will be regularly changing. Okay, currently I am a root user. If I say exit, I will be logged out from root user and I'll go back to Vagrant user. If I hit exit once again, I will be exiting or logging out from Vagrant user. So I will come back to my Windows machine. Vagrant SSH, login again. So as you can see now, I am logged in as Vagrant user to my machine. I can do sudo -i and I can switch to root user again. I hit exit. I go back to Vagrant user. Okay, now some very basic file-based commands. I'm in my Vagrant user's home directory and I'm going to create some directories over here. So I'll create a directory named dev. I'll create multiple directories. One is ops and one as backup directory. So I have now total 3 directories in my home directory. I'm going to use now touch command. Touch is a command that will create empty files or it will update files timestamp. So I say touch and I will say test file 1.txt. The extension is not so important here now, but anyways we'll give it. So touch command creates empty file. There's nothing in that file. We can create multiple files also like that. I will give name as devops file, and I'll use curly braces, and I will give a range of numbers 1 dot dot 10, and I'll put an extension also .txt. Hit enter, and now you should see 10 files that start with name devops, then the number of the file, and then ends with .txt. So it does something like multiplication. It gives you a range 1 to 10. Okay, now let's see copying files. We'll copy a file, say cp devops file 1.txt to dev directory. I say dev and give /. So this is the source and that is the destination. Hit enter. And if I do ls dev, I can see the file is copied there. Now I have given a relative path. I am already here. I have dev directory, so I can say ls dev /, but let's say I'm in temp directory. And if I want to list dev directory, which is not here, so I'm going to say ls and I'll give absolute path /home /vagrant/dev. So both give me same result. This was relative path and this is absolute path. Now going back to my home directory, cd enter. I'll clear the screen now. I'm back to my home directory. So that was copying a file. I'll show you now how to copy the file with absolute path, source and destination both. So let's again go to temp directory or any other directory you want. I want to copy devops file 2.txt to dev directory again. So I'll say cp absolute path /home /vagrant devops 2.txt and /home /vagrant dev. Okay, I've given source as the absolute path and destination as an absolute path. So as long as you don't become comfortable with Linux file system, use absolute path. It's a good practice. Even if you're located the same place, if you're in home directory, right, still use the absolute path for a few days so you become comfortable with Linux file system structure. Okay, there's also one more way to go back to home directory, cd and using tilde symbol. This should be just below your escape button. It does the same thing. Tilde means home directory, so Vagrant uses home directory. I'm back. Okay, now let's copy a directory into another directory. So I will copy dev directory. I'm giving the relative path to backup directory, again relative path. So I say backup directory /, so this directory will be copied inside this directory. Or does it? Let's see. Okay, we got some response back. It's an error actually, omitting directory. If we do ls to backup directory, it's nothing. Try absolute path also for practice. Yeah, nothing. So that did not work out. That's because you cannot copy directories like that. If you want to copy the directory, you have to use an option called -r. And I will say copy dev directory to backup directory. And that worked. You can do ls backup directory or try with absolute path again, use up arrow. I'm showing again and again absolute path so you can become comfortable. That's all. If you're already comfortable, use whatever you want, relative path, absolute path. Okay, now that brings me to the Linux syntax, command syntax, Linux command syntax. So you have command, options, and then the arguments. Okay, so that is the command we use, right? So the syntax is like this. First you have the command, which is cp in this case. And then you have options. You have many options. We'll see how we can find other options also. And then you have arguments. Now some places you can just use the command, like ls is just a command, but there are options also with this command. You can do ls -L, for example. We'll see what is that. It's the long listing. It's going to show detailed information. Or you can also give arguments with ls command. Like you can give a path of a directory, for example, temp directory, or a file path. But cp commands definitely needs to pass arguments. Without passing arguments, cp command will not work. So based on your commands and your need, you will use the right syntax. Now about the options. There, for one command there could be many options, and it's not possible to memorize those things, and you should not really, because there is always help available. For example, for cp you can say -help. Any command you can use this option -help, and it will show you first the usage, how to use this command. I'll show you 3 examples there for cp, and you see there are a lot of options. -a for archive, -f for force, -i for interactive. If you want it to ask question before overwriting any file, okay, it will ask you question, interactive. And you see there R. So you have capital R, small r, recursive. So you can use any of these 3 to copy directories recursively. Mostly you will see this syntax for the options: hyphen, one single hyphen if just a single alphabet, but if there is a word, it will be hyphen, like hyphen recursive, or you can use -R. Now every command will have its own options, so run -help command and find out your option that you want, or you can simply Google it. That is also fine. But help will be always at your fingertip. Remember that. You don't need to memorize these many things. Okay, resuming back our work. So you have seen cp command. Let's see now mv command. Mv is to move files. So mv, and I would like to move DevOps file number 4 or file number 3 to ops directory. That's mv. You can check ls ops. If you want to move the directory, you don't need to give any special option. I would like to move ops directory, let's say, to dev directory. Okay, so it should have been moved now. There is no ops here. It should be in the dev directory. Move command is also used to rename file, any file or any directory. You can say mv, you can give a source file, let's say test file 1.txt. We'll name it to test file 22.txt. Okay, that's renaming a file or a directory. Anyways, when we say file, it means any file in Linux. Okay, now little regular expression. If you want to do multiple things at once, like if I want to copy all the text file to a text directory, I will create a directory called as text directory, and I would like to move all the file that ends with txt to text directory. So I can use mv, and I'll say star. Star means everything in Linux. So when I say here star, that means everything in the current directory, but I'm going to say everything that ends with .txt. Move it to the text directory. You see that? That's gone. Let's go to the text directory now. rm command. Rm is to remove files. So you say rm, you can give a file name. Let's say DevOps 10 file.txt, removes. Let's create some directory here. Directory, let's say named mobile. Now if you want to remove the directory, rm and the directory path, and it's going to throw you an error, because to remove a directory you have to use an option -r. Now this is -r option for rm command. cp command, we also have -r option. Removes a directory. Gone. If you want to remove everything, let's create a few more things here. I'm going to clear the screen now. I'll create some directory, test directory 1.5. So I have some 5 directories and some file. I want to clear everything. I want to delete everything. I can say rm-r, and I can say star, which is a very dangerous command, by the way. it's going to remove everything from your current working directory. So be careful when you execute this command. And sometimes people use F option also to force, so it does not ask any question. And you see everything is gone. Now, if you're not careful and if you're not in the right directory, okay, let's say by mistake you run this command in your home directory, right? And then it's going to remove everything from your home directory. Or imagine if you are in etc directory or some important other directory, server data, right? This command can delete everything, and there is no rolling back here. There is no trash. There is no recycle bin here. If you want to get your files back now, then you have to do hard disk restoration, which could be complicated and not 100% assurance that you'll get back all your files. So be careful before you delete anything in Linux system. So that's all in this video about this very basic commands. You can run your history command and see all the commands that you executed. If you're done reviewing your work, if you're done practicing, then join me in the next video. In this session, we will be seeing Vim editor. Vim is a text editor. We will be editing, creating a lot of text files throughout this course, and you should be very good with this editor. If you're already good with any other text editor like Nano, you can continue with that. But if you don't know any text editor in Linux, then we're going to start with Vim editor. By default, Vim editor will not be installed on CentOS machine. You will have Vi editor. Vim is just enhanced Vi editor. So first we'll install the Vim editor. So let's go to our VM. Okay, so I am Vagrant user and this is CentOS machine. So to install, you have to give the command sudo yum install vim -y. We'll be understanding these commands in detail later. As of now, just run this command to install Vim editor. If for some reason your installation is not working, it's throwing you error, you don't need to troubleshoot anything over here. Recreate the VM. It's probably your VM is not getting internet, or you can bring up Ubuntu VM that has Vim by default installed. And that's only if your installation is not working. Don't waste your time in troubleshooting now. We are going to cover networking with Vagrant later. So if you have any problem, then you can troubleshoot. As of now, just install, not working, use Ubuntu VM. Okay, once you have installed your Vim editor, let's create some file with it. So that's how you do. There's nothing over here. I'm in the home directory. I'm going to run the command vim and a file name. So I'll name it just simply firstfile.txt. Again, here extension is just for our reference. It doesn't matter even if you don't give extension. We can open this file and we're going to edit this. This is going to be a text file. So give any name .txt, hit enter. You should see new file over here, okay, and the file name. When you open Vim editor first, it will be in command mode. There are 3 modes in Vim editor. You have command mode, then you have insert mode. In this mode, you're going to make changes. Any edit you want to do in the file, you have to get into insert mode by hitting I as in India. Third mode is extended mode. If you want to do some other operation like you want to save the file or quit from the file, you can get into extended mode. That will be by using colon, and we'll see how that works. So currently I'm in command mode. I'm going to hit I as in India and I get into insert mode and I can then start writing here. So I'll just say welcome to Linux. I know you're already welcomed, but again I'm welcoming. I hope you enjoy command line. Just commands. Whatever you want to write. Okay, I have written 2 lines in this file and now I want to save it. So you have to hit escape to go back to command mode. And then hit colon. And when you hit colon, you are in extended mode. And in extended mode, you can save the file. You have to say colon and W, which is write, save the file. And we have written 2 lines, 45 characters. Now, I didn't count that. The Vim is counting it for me. Okay, now you want to go out, quit from this file, again you have to be in the command mode. Okay, so escape colon Q, hit enter and it will quit. You can use your cat command to read the file. Okay, now we want to open this file once again. So vim and file name again or file path, hit enter. Now this is not a new file, it's an existing file. Now you want to make change, again you can use I to insert, or you can use O as in Oscar, to get into insert. Now O is going to just drop one level down. And I'll write one more line. It is super important for you to practice Linux before getting into DevOps. Now that's a truth. Even if you are a Windows DevOps, I mean, if you're using Windows operating system for server and for automation, for everything, still you will need to have Linux skills, because being a DevOps, you'll be using so many Linux based tools. Okay, now let's save this file and we're going to do all at once. Escape colon save and quit, WQ, save and quit at the same time. Hit enter and you should see the file now. Let's open it once again. So simply want to quit, colon Q, quit out. Let's open it once again, and this time let's make some changes. And oh, that's a mistake and we don't want to save it. So escape colon Q you're trying to do, and it will not let you quit because you have made some changes. So again, escape colon Q exclamation, that is forcefully quit without saving anything. Okay, so whatever changes you made will not be saved and you go out. Right, check that. Okay, that's very basic operations of vim editor. Okay, editing a file, making changes whatever you want, saving, quitting forcefully. So you have seen three modes. When you open the file, you're in command mode, insert mode to make changes, and you want to go to extended mode, you have to come to first command mode, escape and colon, and then you get into extended mode. Now there are a lot of shortcuts in vim editor. We're going to see some of them, very useful one, like copy paste, cut paste, redo, undo, stuff like that. For this we need a little bigger file, so I'm going to become the root user, because in root user's home directory there are two files. Okay, these are long files. Okay, there's so much information in this file. So this file is Anaconda KSCFG. Basically this file will have the information of the OS installation, what all you selected while you're installing operating system. Well, we really did not install this operating system, we did it through Vagrant, but it will still have the information how it was installed. Okay, that's not the point anyways, we just want to see some vim commands. So let's open this file, anaconda ks.cfg, hit enter. Okay, first thing I'll show you setting up line numbers here. So colon se space nu set numbers. Okay, this is an extended mode, so it will show you the line numbers. Okay, now my cursor is on the line number 1. I want to go to the last line. I can use a shortcut Shift G or capital G. If you want to go to the first line, G 2 times, GG, small g, line number 1. Okay, Shift G, last line, GG, first line. Now sometimes you have hundreds and thousands of lines in a file, right? So using down arrow, up arrow, it's going to take some time, so shortcut. Okay, let's do some copy paste. Now before we see vim editor copy paste, you can really like select things in git bash, right click, copy, and you can take your cursor where you want and you can get into insert mode and paste it, right? You can do that also, but vim editor, that's how we're going to do. Let's see. Okay, I want to copy this line number 12, so I take my cursor to line number 12 and I use y 2 times, y. This is called as yanking or copying. Y. and then I want to paste it somewhere. I'll go to the last line, Shift G, and I will hit P to paste. Okay, small p to paste below. If you want to paste above, capital P, paste above. Okay, that was neat. Let's go again to line number 1. Okay, if you want to copy multiple lines, so let's say I want to copy line number 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. So I take my cursor to line number 16, I say 4YY. Okay, so 4 lines copied below my cursor. Then let's paste it somewhere. Let's go to the end again, and let's use P, small p, to paste below. You see, 4 lines pasted. Okay, feel free to copy and paste anywhere you want. This really is not a configuration file. You can do whatever you want in this file, or you can copy this file somewhere and you can do whatever operation you want. Okay, so that was copy paste. Let's do now cut paste. Okay, and first line, so cut, or you can delete also. Yeah, D 2 times is to delete. So if I hit DD, it deleted line number 1. Okay, you can use U to undo. U as an umbrella, undo. If you want to delete multiple lines, again, like I want to delete this first 5 lines, I'll take the cursor top, I say 5DD, deleted 5 lines. Right? If you save, the lines are deleted. U to undo. Okay, similar way you can do cut paste also. Okay, with DD you can cut. So delete is going to cut, not just delete. So let's say I want to delete 23, 24, 25, 26. Again, for this, some 4 lines. Okay, so I'll say 4DD. So I cut those 4 lines, and I'll go at the end and I'll say P to paste. Okay, that's cut paste. YYP is copy paste. DDP is cut paste. Okay, so there are total 117 lines in this file. I'll show you one nice trick. Let's go to the top. So I want to delete all the lines in this file. So 117DD. See, deleted everything. If I save, everything is gone. But I can bring it back. I can do U to undo. Okay. Whatever changes I made, I'm not going to save it. So I'm going to say :Q exclamation. Okay, so there are some shortcuts. GG, capital G, and if you want to move your cursor, you have W, B, NW. N represents the number. Okay, like 5W. Move the cursor 5 words forward, like that. Right, you have U to undo, YY to copy, NYY to copy multiple lines, P to paste below, capital P to paste above. Then you have DD or NDD. One more thing, searching some content in the file. So let's open this file once again. And if I want to search for something, let's say I want to search something as network. So I use /. You have to be in the command mode, / and you search for network. Hit enter. It will show you all the lines that have the word network. And you can use N to go to the next search. Okay, if you hit the search at the end, it will print there. Search, hit bottom, continue at top, N. Okay, so 2 lines I have network, and it's case sensitive. Okay, so if you have capital N, it's not going to show you. That's capital N. Right? Linux is case sensitive, and most of the things will be case sensitive from here onwards. So that's all in this video about VIM editor. I'll see you in the next one. In this video, we will be seeing different types of files in Linux. We have already seen 2 types of file. One is the text file. The other one is a directory. Yes, directory is also a file. Like keyboard is also a file. Mouse is also a file. The SSH that you're doing, the TDY session that you get, that is also a file. Everything is file in Linux, but there are different types of file. So let's see now different types of file in Linux. So I will get to my VM, Vagrant VM, CentOS. It's in F drive, Vagrant VM, CentOS. It's already up, so I'm just going to say Vagrant SSH. Okay, for this one, let's switch to root user. Now ls with an option -l. -l is called as long listing. It's going to show more information about the file. Let's create a directory also over here. Let's do ls-l again. So far by color you must have been understanding that this is a file and this is a directory, but really the colors comes from the client. So this git bash we're using, so this git bash is showing us these colors, but there's really information available over here. If you see here at the beginning, if you see a hyphen in the information, that means it's a regular file. Now regular file could mean it's a text file, or it could mean it's a binary file also. So to be sure, you can run the file command. You can give the path of the file. So I'll give this. So it says ASCII text. So it's a text file. We have already seen that. But there's also then, if you go to bin directory, you do ls-l here. Now you see a lot of files over here. And there is a hyphen over here. That means it's a file, but there's no guarantee it's a text file. So we can run the file command, file, and let's say yum. Well, yum is also a text file, but it's a Python script. Or let's do file to some other file. Let's give absolute path this time, /bin and /pwd. Okay, that's a binary file. So there was a program written, then it was compiled, and you got the binary file from that. ELF 64-bit LSB executable, you see the version, architecture, that's 64-bit. Dynamically linked, uses shared libraries, it's a binary file. Okay, let's go back to our home directory. Let's clear the screen. ls-l. So hyphen is for a file, and the D is for directory. So you can run file on this directory. It says it's a directory. Now these are the files we'll be usually manipulating, directories, files, but then there is a /dev directory. This directory contains device files. If you do ls-l, you should see now a different character. C is for character file, like keyboard is a character device. So you'll see for keyboard C. TTY, okay, that's the session, right? The commands where we are running, that shell, okay, we get a TTY session, that's a character file. SDA, that is our hard disk. Yes, that is our hard disk. And you see there's a B. B means block file. So any kind of block disk, if you attach, now it will be read as the block disk, block file. L is for link, like shortcuts we have, like we have desktop shortcuts. That's not the original file. It points to some other file, right? So this is a shortcut. So a link file, it points to this file. This is the original file. Okay, and this RTC0 is in the same directory, RTC0 here, and that is a character file. So block, character, socket, S is for sockets. These files, we don't do really any operations on that mostly, but it's good to know what kind of file you're dealing with, so you can use appropriate commands. So hyphen regular file, D directory, L link file, C character file, mechanism used for input output, such as files in dev. S socket file, used for interprocess networking, and P pipe file. Now we have seen regular file, text files, we did operations on them, we did directory operation. Now let's do some link operation. We'll create links. So I'm in the root user's home directory, and I'm going to create a link over here to a file that is somewhere else located. So I'm going to create a directory in /opt. Inside that I'll create a directory named dev. Inside that I'll create a directory named ops, and inside that dev ops, inside that directory named test. Now if I run this command, there is no dev directory, so it will not be able to create ops and other directories. So it's going to throw me an error. But if I use an option -p, then it will just create that entire directory structure for me. No questions asked. If I run this command once again also, there's no error, right? But if I don't use -p and the directory already exists, it's going to throw me an error. That directory file exists. Okay, now I'll create a file inside that directory, opt dev ops test, file named commands.txt. Okay, I'll just write some commands over here. Okay, put any content you want, okay, and then save it. Now let's say there is a file that I regularly access which is so many levels in, and usually I log into my home directory, and from there I want to access the file. So I have to give this a complete path which is very long. So instead of that, I'll create a link over here. So I'll give the command ln-s, which stands for soft link, just like shortcuts. First you give the destination, yes, first you give the destination file, and then you give the source file. So destination, I'm giving absolute path. Source also I can give absolute, but I'll give relative path. I will say cmds. Okay, if I do ls-l, I should see a link, okay, cmds, that points to this original file. So if I do cat cmds, I should see the content from that file, right? You see this link file, right? Okay, what happens if the original file is gone? Let's move that original file to somewhere else. Let's move it to temp ls-l, and you see it will be blinking, it will be highlighted like that. This means it's a dead link, okay? It points to a file that does not exist. Okay, well, I'll move back that file again to the same path, and I don't need to do anything else. The link will be back live again. Okay, watch out the path that I'm using, the absolute paths. Okay, let's clear the screen now. If you want to remove a link, you can just remove the file directly by using rm command, or you can use unlink command also, and that should be gone now. But it's just the link that we have removed, okay? Original file still exists. So I'm creating the link once again, ls-l. Now a few more options with ls command. -l shows you a lot of information about the file, but it is going to sort as per the alphabets, A, B, C, D, like that. If you want to sort it as per the timestamp, you can use T. There is a timestamp on every file when the file was last updated. Okay, so if I do ls-lt, it's gonna sort as per the timestamp. It will show the latest first and the older one at the end. If you want to reverse the sort, you can use R, which is gonna just reverse it. It is going to show you latest file at the end, and which is very good if you have a lot of files. For example, if you go to etc directory, or I'll not just go, I'll just do it from here, ls-ltr/etc, it is going to show all the files in this directory and sort it as per the timestamp and then reverse it. And we'll do one thing, we're going to change the host name now, host name, etc hostname file, and we'll change the host name to centos.devops.in. Save and quit. Now when you change that, you can run one more command, host name, and the host name centos7.devops.in. okay, then we log out. You can use Control D or exit, and then we log back in again, and now you should see the host name is changed. Let me clear the screen, and you can run the hostname command and see the host name, and you should see ls-ltr/etc. That's the last file that was updated. So you have also seen how we change configuration. We just edit the file, make the changes, save it, and that's it. So it's a normal ASCII text file, and we can make the changes by using vim editor. Again, to get all your previously executed command, run the history command and get all your commands. Now currently it's showing history of Vagrant user. If I do sudo -i, run history command, and this is the history of root user. Well, that is all in this video. I will see you in the next one. Filters and redirections. In this video, we will be talking about how to get data by filtering, or should I say, get the right data for me, and then also redirecting that data to a file or a program to process more further. If you really want to be smart in Linux, you should be very good in filtering and redirection. This is also very helpful in scripting. So we're going to see some filtering command, and then we're also going to talk about input output redirections, like filtering grep command to find some text from the files, less command, more command, which are a reader of the files, head or tail command to see the first 10 line or last 10 lines, getting a particular column from a file by using cut command, search and replace file content by using sed or even vim editor. We'll see then redirecting output to a file, redirecting standard output and redirecting error also, appending the content, or redirecting all kinds of output to file. We'll see piping, we'll see pipe, and we'll see how we can use the output of a command as an input to other command. We're passing instruction to the next command which will do some operation for us. We'll also see how to find the file with its name and some other parameters, and a few more tips and tricks of system administrators. So let's learn them one by one. So I'm in my Linux VM. I'm going to do sudo -i to become the root user. Here we have a file anaconda kscfg. We have seen this file previously. We are going to do some operations on this file. If you wish to use any other file, that is also fine. So I have a file anaconda kscfg, and I am looking for a text in that file, whether it exists or not. So I have a command called grep, and I'm going to say grep firewall. Basically look for a text called firewall in the file anaconda kscfg. So command, what you want to search, and the file path. Hit enter, and it should show me the line which contains the word firewall. Now Linux is case sensitive, so you have also their capital firewall, capital F. Both are different. If you want to ignore the case sensitivity, you can use -i in grep. So it will show you all the content or all the lines that contains the word firewall, even if it's small or capital. Let's edit this file and let's put somewhere some content. We'll say fire and we'll say W capital. Firewall is off in this machine. Just some text. And I'm going to save and quit this. Now if I do grep -i firewall, small, capital, whatever, it's going to show me all the lines that contains the word firewall. So here F is capital, here F is small, here W is capital. So all of that. Now I'm just giving input over here of this file. When we talk about input, your command will have an input redirection symbol like this, which is invisible. So basically what's happening is this file is coming as an input for this command. You see the same result. So that's by default, you don't need to mention it. That's input redirection. That's just about one file. But what if I'm looking for multiple files? Oops. Yeah, I'm looking for content in the current working directory. Right, so I can say grep firewall. I'll use -i here, and I can do star, which will mean all the files in the current directory. So let's do that. So it shows the file name. So you have 3 lines from anaconda kscfg. From original case.cfg also you have 1 line which matches. But for a directory, it's throwing an error. A DevOps directory is a directory. So it is not going to get into the directory. If you want it to get into the directory, then use the option R. -R if you are not using I. So just use -R, but we're using I also. Then it will get into the directory also. Since there is no such thing, you know what, we'll put this file into DevOps directory with a different name. My booting file.cfg. Okay, I copied a file, same file over there. Let's do it once again. Now you see it also gets inside the directory and show you and search for the file with the content that you have mentioned. Now that's interesting. Now think about it. If you're looking for a configuration that you want to change, but you really don't know in which file it is located, you at least know it's in etc directory, but you don't know which file it is. Like for example, you're searching for a setting called SE Linux caps. Okay, try this exercise. SE Linux is a security enhanced Linux, and sometimes we need to switch it to permissive or disabled mode from enforcing mode. So we know there is this setting called SE Linux caps, but we really don't know in which file it is located. So I'm going to say grep SE Linux and I'll say /etc. And I don't know whether it's in subdirectories or not, so I'm going to give an option -r, say /etc*. So look for all the files, subdirectories, all the files basically in etc for a text called SE Linux caps. And then you can go through the result. SE Linux config SE Linux equal to SE Linux types. That's SE Linux. Yeah, that one. Now you don't need to get into what is SE Linux for now, but I'm just showing. Look, you're looking for a setting, but you don't know in which file it is. You can do a search like this, right? And when you got your result, let's see, that's the file. So you can use that file. Open that file and you see says SE Linux is in permissive mode. I want to change it to maybe disabled mode. So I will make the change disabled and save and quit. And for SE Linux to take effect, you need to reboot machine, but we're gonna skip that part for now. And you have to understand how powerful this method is. You want to change configuration. Configuration are stored in text files. And most of your operations will be like this. You look for a file, you make the change either manually or automatically through your scripts. So this is a very effective trick of system administrators. So they don't need to memorize things. Okay, one more option with grep. Grep has one opposite searching option, -v. It is like, do not search for anything that says firewall. Or I'll also put I for case sensitivity for the file Anaconda. So it's the opposite. Do not show me any content, any line that contains firewall, except that it's going to show you everything. Okay, and that's a very long file, so you can check that. You will not see anything that contains firewall, except that all the lines are displayed. Reverse search. -v option. Okay, let's see other commands now. Less is a reader. So you say less and you give a file path that you want to read, right? And you can use cat also, but cat just displays all the content and just quits. Less is a reader, so you can use up arrow, down arrow, you can read the content. It looks like VIM editor, but it's not an editor, it's a reader. And you can also make search also from here, like /, let's say you're searching for network. Yeah, like that. If you want to quit, you just use Q to quit. Similar to less, there is one more, and give the file path more. Now more, you cannot use up arrow, down arrow, you have to use your enter return keys, and it's going to show you file in the percentage way. I really don't use it much. I use less more than more, but then again it's your choice. If you want to quit, you can just go till the end, or you can use Q to quit. Okay, so more and less, it's your choice. Sometimes you just want to see the first few lines of a file, so you can use head command and you can give the file path. It will show you first 10 lines of the file, but if you want, you can change. You want to see first 20 lines, so you can say -20, first 20 lines, or you just want to see first 2 lines, head -2. Okay, that's handy. You don't need to read the entire file. The opposite of it is tail. Tail is going to show you, as you would have already guessed, last 10 lines of a file. And again, you can use your numbers. You can say first 2 lines, or how many lines you want to read. Now tail has also one very useful option, -f. -f, and you give a file path, it will show you the dynamic content. So it's not quitting. If you see, I hit enter, you see my cursor is just blinking there. So if any changes happen in this file, it's going to show me on my screen, which is good when we read log files. So to control C to quit from here. Now talking about log files, let me show you one example. So log files of the systems are located in /var/log. Here you will see log file of the system, or if any service that is running any server, you'll see logs in this directory by default. But some servers have log files in some other directory also, like yum.log. So let's see, tail -f yum.log. Okay, so you see the last 10 lines, and if something is happening, you can see the logs updating over here. The system log file is messages. In a Red Hat machine, messages is the system's log file, which will record a lot of information. You can do a cat to this file and you'll see a lot of information. So the new system, so you really don't see much information, but it will show login events also. So let's do this. I just open one more git bash and we'll make a login attempt. And before we do that, I will just do tail -f. We'll give the complete path var log messages. Okay, just hit enter. Okay, so there it is telling the log. And now from another git bash, I will get into that directory and I will make a login attempt. Okay, vagrant SSH, which will be a successful attempt. And this login event should be recorded in this file, and you should see dynamically this file getting updated on my screen. See there, here I made a login and you see the event over there. Right, so that's how the tail -f option is very helpful when we're troubleshooting. One very important tip about troubleshooting a server: you see errors in log files. That's how you start troubleshooting. So every server will have its own, every service will have its own log file, and you see some error. You want to see when does this error triggers, when does this happen. So you can probably make some changes or restart the service, and by the time when you're doing those changes, you can keep tailing in one shell in one session, and you will see if you do this particular thing, you see the error, and that's how you can start troubleshooting then more further. You can funnel down to the problem. Okay, let's do control C. So one more system administrator's trick or tip. Okay, now let me show you one file, etc passwd. This file contains user information, all the users in our systems and their information, and we'll get into users and group in the next video. But for now, we are just doing some filtering over here. So I want to get all the usernames. This file has all the username, but it has all the other content also. I don't want all that content. I just want the usernames, or maybe just the user ID, whatever we want. We can get from this file because this file is properly segregated into rows and columns, right? These are the rows and the columns are separated by colon. Okay, so you have username, colon, and some information, colon, and some information, and we'll understand what are the other information, right? But first column is username, right? So this file is properly segregated by using colons, and if you have that proper separators or proper delimiters like colon or comma or anything, then you can use a cut command. Cut, you see -d delimiter or the separator colon, and you say -f1 the field 1 column 1, and you give the file path. So it will show you just the field 1, the first column of the entire file. That's nice and all, but for cut command, the delimiters are very important, right? So it's going to, you can use, let's say field 3, which shows you the user ID, field 4, group ID. Okay, like that you can see whatever field you want. But this is good only if you have a proper separator, like here colon. But if you don't have proper separators, then there is an intelligent filter tool called as awk. Awk has lots of options. You can use all your regular expressions, all your filtering techniques, and you can use awk command to apply all those filtering techniques using regular expressions. I'll show you one simple example as we've seen with cut now. Cut hyphen capital F. In single quote, you give the delimiter, and in single quote, you create curly braces and say print $1. Now, this may look more complicated than cut, but sometimes for some advanced search or intelligent search, awk is always better. And give the path. We're going to see more example on awk later. One simple example as cut, getting the first column. Okay, we'll see search and replace now. I have a sample file over here that has 3 sentences, and it has the word coronavirus, 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 coronavirus. I know it's everywhere, at least now when I'm recording it. But there's also vaccine now from Moderna and from Pfizer. Even though it is still spreading, and still it's a pandemic and a huge pandemic. Anyways, let's search for the text coronavirus and replace it with COVID-19. So we have 2 ways. One is through VIM editor, where just single file. So open the file, %s / which means search for coronavirus, and then / and replace it with, let's say, COVID-19. Right? I hit enter, and you see it has changed at 3 places, there, and there, but not here. If the same text you're searching is multiple times in the line, then it will not make the automatic replacement. It will find there is a text, replace it, and go to the next line. If you want to replace it everywhere, I'm using U to undo first. Yeah, okay. So if you want to replace it everywhere, then do the same thing. Search for coronavirus. Oops. Replace it with COVID-19. /G. G means globally. So every place you have coronavirus, replace it with COVID-19. And that's it. I'll show you one more trick. %s search for, now we'll search for, we have COVID-19, right? So let's search for COVID-19, and I want to replace it with nothing, like I want to replace corona with nothing. So /G. Okay, 2 /. That means search for COVID-19, replace it with nothing. Oh, there is a spelling mistake. Oh, there is a spelling mistake. Typographical error. COVID. Just COVID I have given. Naughty. COVID-19. Replace it with nothing. Hit enter. And you see that? See that we really don't need a vaccine. We just need a set command to replace it with nothing. I know that's a bad joke. Anyways. So I'm not saving the content. If you save, it is saved. I'm just going to quit forcefully. Now let's do the same thing with sed command. Now if you want to do it out of the VI editor, if you want to do for multiple files, you can use sed command. Sed in single quote s / searching for coronavirus and replacing it with COVID-19. / again G for global. If you don't use G, then you know what happens. And give the file path. Now here you can use regular expressions also. Probably you have multiple files that has. You can say star.txt for all the text search, or you can just say star for all search for all the files in the current directory for coronavirus and replace it with COVID-19. Right? That's very handy. Trust me, we need to do a lot of file changes, and sometimes we need to change settings in multiple files, and which will have multiple lines. So this will do it just like that. You don't need to open all the files and do search and replace. It's very easy with sed command. So that's one more tip or trick for you. Okay, but when you do it with sed command, it will just print it on the screen. It will not actually make the changes. If you see the file, it will still have coronavirus. Yeah, but that was just printing. If you want to change it, then you have to use an option -I. So it's like little safer, right? First you see what you're changing, and then if you're good, then use -I to actually change the content. Yeah, now it's changed. Okay, or you want to make some other change, like now you have COVID-19 in this file, and I want to replace it with nothing, as in nothing text. Okay, let's see the file. Right, you see that Moderna has created vaccine for nothing. For nothing, Pfizer has also created a vaccine. Nothing spreads through water droplets in air, and nothing is a pandemic. That's a big lie. Okay, that's just for fun. Coronavirus is really very, very deadly, and we should be really safe by using our masks, sanitizing our hands, and maintaining social distancing. Yeah, that's the only way now, unless we get a vaccine. Okay, next we are going to see input-output redirection. So we know standard output device to our computer is the monitor, the screen. So we run anything on our computer, any program, the output mostly will be coming on the screen, right? Like we run the uptime command. Output is on the screen. We do cat etc pass wd. It's coming on the screen. So if there is an output needs to be printed, the standard output device is our screen. Yes, that's also common sense. But my point is, you can change that standard output device for a command that you're running. Let's say you're running uptime command and you don't want to print it on the screen. Maybe you want to redirect it to another file. So use the redirection symbol, and let's create a file, let's say in temp directory. I'll say sysinfo, like systeminfo.txt. So you see the output did not come on the screen, it went to this file. Right, like that. I'm running ls command, showing it on the screen. I can redirect it to the same file. But what happens when I do redirection is, if the file does not exist, it will create the file. If the file already exists, it will overwrite its content. Right, so previously we had this content, and now if you see, the content would be overwritten. Right, now we have the file names from the ls command. But if you don't want to overwrite, you just want to append the content, you can use double arrows. Output redirection appended. Okay, now we'll see temp sysinfo.txt. You see now the other content. Okay, I'll show you now 3 simple commands in Linux. One you have already seen, uptime, that shows the uptime. Free -m, that is going to show you the memory utilization. Mem means the RAM, the physical RAM. Swap is the virtual memory. So physical RAM, it says total 486 MB, 100 is used, 35 is free, 369 is available. Okay, so I would redirect that information to the file. One more, df-h. This is going to show you the hard disk partition utilization. So that is your root partition, and it is size 50 GB. It says 1.5 GB is used, 49 GB is available. It's mounted at root directory. We'll learn this command later in detail. I just want to show you some commands so we can use its output. I'll also show you one more command, echo. Echo is a print command. So whatever you want to print, like good morning, right? It's just going to print it. That's all. So now I'm going to use this echo command and print some hash, and not really print, I'm going to send it to the file /temp sysinfo. So I use single redirection, so everything will be replaced. There's also one more command's output I would like to redirect, date. Let's do it once again. We'll redirect the output of date to /temp sysinfo.txt. And let's do it this one once again, but now double arrow. So you get date in the file, then this hash, and then we'll put the uptime command output, uptime, double arrow temp sysinfo.txt, and let's put this hash once again. Then the output of free-m, again hash, then output of df-h, and again hash. Okay, now let's see the content of the file temp sysinfo.txt. That looks fancy. At this particular time, this was the uptime, this was the RAM utilization, this was the disk utilization. Now this will be very handy when we are writing bash scripts. So that's about output redirection to a file. But if you don't want to see output, not on the screen, not in any file, then you can redirect the output to somewhere else, which is /dev/null. This is a file that does not contain anything, and if you throw anything in this, then it's gone. It's like black hole in Galaxy. So let me show you this. I run the command yum install vim-y, which is going to generate a lot of output, but I don't want to see the output. I'll just say output redirection and dev null. So you see output is gone. Okay, we're not seeing it. Now if you want, you do dev null thinking that the content will be there, but there's nothing in that, just like a black hole. One more use of dev null file I'll show you. So let's say I want to clear this file content. I don't want anything in that. Yes, you can open, delete all the content, but there's an easiest way. You can do cat dev null and redirect the output to file, and that file will have then nothing. That sounds a little philosophical, right? It's very handy. Now if you check the file content, everything will be wiped out clean. So what came out of dev null file was nothing, and we redirected nothing to a file, and then the file became nothing. Okay, these tricks will be very handy in bash scripting. Okay, so that's redirecting standard output, but you get errors sometime. Like I'm running a command free-m, I redirect the output to dev null or any such output. I don't see anything. But if you make any error, so I'll give a wrong command. It's too many e's in free. So you see now the error comes, command not found. If you don't want to see the error, you can do 2. Output redirection 2 means standard error. And if you would like to redirect it to a proper file, like say temp error.log. Okay, then you do cat temp error.log. Now you will see error there. So 2 is for standard error, 1 is for standard output, which is by default. If you don't give 1, even though it's the default value 1, which is standard output. 1 standard output to standard error. But if you would like to redirect any kind of output, so you can just say ampersand. So if it's an output, or even if it's an error, anything goes to that file. So you see output came, and then also error came to this file. So programs or processes that are running behind the scene will be redirecting output to a file. Those files we call as log file. So what are log file you see in var log? These log files are getting generated, or their content is getting created from processes that are running behind the scene, and they generate output. So they redirect either error to a specific file, output to another file, or sometimes both to one single file, like ampersand. Now I'm saying this is handy in bash script because we write bash script, we run them in the background or any kind of script, and we want to redirect that output to some file, so we can review that later, right? Such files are called as log files. Okay, so let me clear the screen now. So that was about output redirection. Now we're going to talk about piping. So before that, I'll show you one command, wc-l. This command is going to count line number, and you can give any path file, etc passwd. So it counts how many lines are there, 25 lines. So here the input to this command is coming from the file. But what if you want to count something else? Like for example, you go into etc directory, run ls command, and you want to count all the number of files over here. So what you can do here is you can run the ls command and then pipe it. That's the symbol of pipe. Pipe it with wc-l. Now what will happen is ls is going to generate the output. That output goes as an input to this right hand side command. So that input will be coming like this. And so as it is going to count 186 files total. That's nice trick. Okay, other things. You want to see search for a file name, let's say host, that starts with host and ends with anything. Now grep will get input from this command. And it's gonna search. And there's nothing. Oh yeah, I don't need to give this star, otherwise it is thinking that it's a file named host star. Okay, so ls grep host, and there you go, all the file that starts with the name host. Or maybe you are doing head to a file, let's say var log or tail, let's do tail var log messages, and you want to see if there is some event with named vagrant. There's nothing. Let's do tail -20. Yeah, so from last 20 lines of this file we are searching for text named vagrant, and there we go. So like that, there are numerous benefits of this piping. Like free-m, I just want to see the RAM size. I don't want to see swap. I don't want to see that third line, and I don't want to see the heading. I just want to see this line. So I will find something unique over here which does not change, like mem. So I'm going to say free-m pipe grep mem. You can really pipe any command as long as it makes sense, like ls-l, and you want to pipe it with tail command. So last 10 files. Our first 10 files, and then it's all about your imagination. We're going to do a lot of piping and filtering in scripting, so this will come very useful. Okay, one more last command in filter, which is find. Now so far we are looking at the content of the file. Now if you want to find the file itself, then you can use find command. You can say find me a file in, let's say, etc -name, and the name of the file, let's say, is host, or it starts with host. So find, and we give the path, and we say find it with the name of the file, and there we go. Now you can make a search at the root level also, which is searching the entire operating system, but this may slow down your operating system also. Now we don't have many things over here, not any huge data, so it worked, but I do not recommend making search at the root directory, because this is a real-time search. One easy way of searching is also through locate command, but locate will not be installed by default, so you have to install this software, mlocate. mlocate, you have installed mlocate. Now you have to run a command called as update db. Now locate is not a real-time search, so it's going to search from its database, which gets updated with this command. So locate, and I say host. So it's going to search from its database every file that has the name host in it, and there are quite many files. Now it's not a real-time search, so even if happen to delete some file, it will still be showing it as long as you don't run update db command. So before you run the locate command, you make sure you run update db, so you get right path or the existing data. Well, that's all in the filtering here, in piping, redirection, run the history command and see what are the commands that you executed, and practice them more. You should be really very good in this filtering and redirection before you step into bash scripting. Alright, then wrap this up and join me in the next video. In this video, we will be understanding about users and groups in a Linux operating system. So users and group are used to control access to files and resources or programs or processes. Basically files, everything is a file. So every file in the system will be owned by a user and an associated group with it. And then you can really control the access on that file by specifying how much permission or authorization is to that user. Every user will have a unique user ID, which we call it as UID. And all this UID information will be stored in etc passwd file, which we have already seen, but now we'll understand it much better. There's also an etc shadow file which will have encrypted password and some other information like expiry of the user and a few other things. When you create a user, usually we assign a home directory, and that's done by default. Sometimes we restrict the home directory also. Well, there are three kinds of users in Linux. One is a root user, and its user ID is 0, group ID is 0, its home directory is /root, and it has a login shell /bin/bash. That's the path of bash shell. Then you have a regular user, like we have a Vagrant user, or we can create a user like Imran user or any other user. This user will always have user ID more than 1000. It will have a group, its group ID will be more than 1000, and these are default numbers. If you wish, you can change them. And we'll have a home directory and a login shell bin bash. Then there is other kind of user called as service user or system users like FTP, SSH, Apache, and many more. Now these are not the usual login user. You don't use this user to log into the system. They will have user ID starting from 1 to 999, and group will have group ID from 1 to 999, and they will have home directory probably in the var or etc, or may not even have sometimes home directory properly. They will not have a login shell. You will see /sbin/no-login or /sbin/false. So to prevent people accessing shell from this user. So, if someone gets hold of this user, these users will not even have password set, but someone get hold of this user, they will not be able to get any shell to execute commands. These are for the processes running in the background. Okay, now let's get into our shell, our Linux system. So log into the VM and switch to root user. First, let's understand the etc passwd file. That's the entire file. Let's just get first one line of the file, etc passwd. Okay, let me clear the screen and let's do it once again. So there are total 7 columns here. The first one is the username. Then the second one is X, which means there is a link to a shadow file. Shadow file will hold the password encrypted. Then you have the user ID. Root user ID is usually 0. Group ID. There will be a primary group for every user that we create, and root's group ID is 0, just 0. And then you have the comment, any comment you want to put. Then you have /root, which is the home directory of the root user. Then the login shell. Let's search for Vagrant user. etc passwd. Okay, so Vagrant, that's the username. Link to shadow file. User ID 1000. Group ID 1000. Some comment. Home directory of Vagrant user and the login shell. So that's root user and that's a normal user, and then you have these other users which are system users like bin, daemon, adm, lp. If you see their login shell /bin/no-login, okay, or their home directory /bin/sbin. There's also for SSH user called SSHD. We'll be seeing later, we'll be setting up other servers like web server, database server, and you'll see there's a user that gets created when you install those packages. Now let's check the group file. etc group. This file will have the group information. So that's the Vagrant group, and that's the group ID 1000, and there is a user called Vagrant in this group. Okay, like that you should have groups of other user. These are the primary groups we are seeing now. We'll also see how we can create our own group and add users in that. So that's root group. Now the group name and the username is similar, right? And even the user ID and group ID is also similar. Like we do grep to etc passwd, and we do grep vagrant to /etc/group. All right, so there's striking similarity. This user ID, username is same, and the group name is also same. The user ID is same, and the group ID is also same. But it's really very easy to understand. This is from the group file, and this is from passwd file. So this is user information, and this is group information. After group ID : you will see the user that belongs to that group. So for this group Vagrant, we have a user called as Vagrant in that. Okay, if that's confusing, we're going to create some users and group, and you'll understand very well. Okay, some commands we have like ID command, and we give the username, and it will give information about that user. Right, like it's user ID, it's group ID, the other groups is whether it belongs to. So Vagrant user belongs to a group Vagrant and also a group Wheel. Now let's add our own user. So I will add a user, let's say Ansible, and I will add a user named Jenkins, and I will add a user named AWS. It's just some name. Okay, you can give any name, and you should see then -4 etc passwd. You should see the user's information now in passwd file. You should also see similar information in the group file for the group that got created. Okay, so when we created user Ansible, it created a group called as Ansible, which is the primary group. You can also run id command. Now we will create a group add DevOps. This command is going to create the group. Now I want to add all these 3 users into the group DevOps. There are 2 ways. One, I can use the user mod command, and I'll use the option -a capital G. Capital G means the supplementary group or the secondary group. If you use a small g, that will be the primary group. So I want to add user into the group DevOps. The user I'm going to say is Ansible. Okay, now if you do ID Ansible, you should see Ansible user is in the group DevOps. Okay, let's also grep for Ansible from etc group file, or I'll search for DevOps in the group file. So DevOps group. You see now DevOps group has the user Ansible in it. Now that's one way of adding a user into the group. We add Ansible user to DevOps group. You can directly edit the group file also. etc group, open the file, and you find your group DevOps, and you want to add users here. You can just say comma separated. I want to add Jenkins, and I also want to add AWS user. Okay, comma separated. You can give as many users you want, and save this file. And then let's run ID on AWS user, and you should see it's in the DevOps group. Now nobody can use this user to log in from outside, or any normal user cannot use this to log in because it does not have any password set. So to set the password, you can use the passwd command, or you can use it to reset the password also. Passwd, and we'll say Ansible, and it will ask me a new password. I will set some password, and I have set a simple password for now. Okay, I will set also password for AWS, and also let's set it for Jenkins. If you want to reset, then you can do the same thing if you forgot the password of that user, but this can be done only by root user to resetting someone's password. Now, being a root user, I really don't need any password to access other user. I can simply say su hyphen and the username, and no password will be asked. You see that? I have switched as Ansible user, no password asked. See, I'm in the Ansible home directory. But from here, I'm a normal user now, Ansible. I want to switch to, let's say, AWS. It's asking me password, and I have to know the password, then only I can switch. Or from AWS user, I want to switch to Jenkins user. Again, it's asking the password. Okay. And you can use exit to log out. Exit from Jenkins, then exit from AWS, then exit from Ansible. Oops. Okay, let's clear the screen. Few more handy commands. Last command, which will show you the user who logged into the systems last, and you'll see the time also. So we've been logging in as Vagrant user, so you'll see the event there, Vagrant user logged in at this particular time. And this Vagrant user, it's already logged in. Or the who command, which will show you the current logged in user. Who am I? You've already been seeing. One more useful command is lsof -u and a username. This command will list all the open file by this user. lsof is not installed, so you can install it. lsof. Okay, yum install lsof. So before you're deleting any user, you're doing some serious user operation, you can see this user has opened how many files. And then based on the information, you can decide what to do with this user. Right? If you do lsof -u AWS, we don't see anything because that user is not logged in. That's also one more way to find out what user is logged in and doing what. A really useful command. Okay, now let's talk about deleting the user. So you can use user del command to delete a user del, and you give a username, let's say AWS. So it will just delete the user, but if you see its home directory will still exist and its mailing spool will also exist. If you want to delete a user with its home directory also, then you use -r. So I say user del -r Jenkins, and now you should see the home directory is also gone. You can also delete the group by using group del command, and you use the group name DevOps. The group got deleted. Okay, so you have seen some user operations now, but it will be really more effective when you see it with file permissions and sudo. Then you will understand its real use. As of now, just practice this, how to add user, remove user and group. I will remove the Ansible user also, but I have to also remove the home directory of AWS user /home/AWS. As usual, run the history command to see the commands that you have executed, and you can practice it again. In this video, we will be talking about file permissions. We have seen so many types of file: text file, directories, link file. Every file will have ownership. As you see here, there is this file which has an ownership of a root user and the group ownership root. So root user owns this file and the group root owns this file. And then you have the permissions. RWX, read, write, execute for the root user. Then you have R-X, so read and execute permission for the root group. And the third one is R-X, which is for others. So you have read and execute permission for others. Now let's see how that works. So let's do ls-l here in the home directory of root user. and you see some files and see some directories and links. Let's copy this information to a text file and decode it. Okay, so for the file Anaconda KS CFG file, it is owned by the root user and the group is root. The permission to this file, so you will have first hyphen which says the type of file, then you have next three hyphen or next three placeholder where you'll have first you have here RW, which means read and write. So this really is the file type, right? And the next 3 bits you see is for the user or the owner of the file, and then the next 3 is for the group. And then the last 3 is for others. These are the permissions, or called as mod, for a particular entity. So for user or the owner, you have read and write, RW. So R means read permission, W means write permission, and if you see there X, that means the execute permission. Right, with this information we can look at this directory, DevOps directory, and we can say for the user root, it has read, write and execute permission on this directory. For the group root, it has read and execute. If there is a hyphen, that means that permission is missing. So write permission is missing for the group root. Last 3 is for others, read and execute permission for other users on this directory. For Anaconda ks.cfg file, only root user has read and write permission. Nobody else has any permission, not even the group, not even the others. Now execute permission on a directory means you can do cd. So any other person can do, any other user can do cd into the DevOps directory. R is for read, can do ls, can list the content in the directory, and W, write, means can make changes, can even delete it. For a link file, you should see full permission, but that is the permission for the link and not for the actual file where it points to. The actual file permission could be something else. Okay, so reiterating it once again, DevOps directory is owned by root user and the root group, and these are the permission: read, write, execute for root user, read and execute for group, read and execute for others. Now let's make changes. Not here, we'll create a different directory. I'll say opt and I'll say DevOps directory, and I'll do ls-l to opt directory, and you see there is a DevOps directory. When you created with root user, so it is owned by the root user, and this is the current authorization. Now I'll create some group and some users. So for group, I'll create a group named DevOps, and then I will create some users. User add, I will say Ansible, user add Jenkins, and then user add AWS. That is fine, that's not an error. Its mailing spool already exists, it says. Let's add one more user. We'll add a user named Miles. Okay, now I will add these 3 users into the DevOps group. These 3 users into the DevOps group. So I'm just going to edit the group file directly. I will go to the group DevOps and add the user AWS, Ansible, Jenkins. Okay, I am not adding the user Miles into this group. Just save and quit. Okay, let's test it. ID Ansible. It's in the group DevOps. Okay then. Well, so I have created a directory. You can check the permission of a directory by using ld-ld. opt DevOps directory. Now I want to change the ownership. chown is the command, and I give the username. So I will give the user named Ansible, and I can give the group name also here by using a colon or a dot, and the group name I will say DevOps and the DevOps directory path. If you want to do it recursively, like also subdirectories, you can use -r, but currently there's nothing in that directory, so it's not going to make any changes inside the directory because it does not have any files. Okay, now let's do ls-ld. Now, one thing before we continue, be very careful with using recursive option. If you really mean to do that, then only use recursive. If you have like hundreds of files and directory inside that, remember every file will have this user and this group ownership then, which will not be easy to roll back. So be careful when you're doing this recursive operation. Okay, now this directory is owned by the Ansible user and the group is DevOps, and they have these permissions: full permission for Ansible and read and execute permission for the group. I want to change that. I want to remove permission for others, all the permissions, and I want to add write permission for the group. So the command is chmod, and I'm going to say for others. So O is for others minus X. So for others, remove execute permission, like that. So any other user will not be able to do cd into that directory. That's nice. But that other users can do ls to that file, which I don't want. So I would like to say other minus r. So for other, remove the read permission also. Yeah, that's nice. Now I want to add write permission for the group. So I'll say chmod g for group plus to add w is the write permission, opt DevOps directory. So now it's how I wanted it to be. Ansible user has full permission, read, write, execute. DevOps group has full permission, read, write, execute, and others have no permission whatsoever. Now I will switch to Miles user, which is others for this file. So if I do ls to /opt DevOps directory, I'll get permission denied. If I try to do cd into that directory, I will get permission denied because execute permission is not there for others. And definitely can't make any changes in that directory. If I try to create some file, touch, I will say opt DevOps directory, let's see test1, permission denied. So no write, no execute, and no read permission. But if I switch to, let's say, AWS user, now I do not have set any password for this, so I have to exit. From the root user, you switch to AWS user or any user that you created. Now AWS user is a part of the DevOps group, so can do ls opt DevOps directory. Nice. Can do cd. Yes. Let me clear the screen. Can create a file also here. Touch. I will say AWS files. Yeah. So read, write, execute permission. So that's how this permission and ownership work together. So in this directory, Ansible and any user in the DevOps group has full permission. Others have no permission. So the ownership and the mod permission works together to secure a file or to give write privilege to write user. Okay, now let me exit from this user. Okay, so as you have alphabets for user group and others, and you have alphabets for the permission, read, write, execute, and your plus and minus to grant or deny permission, like that, you also have a number associated with this permission, read, write, execute. So with chmod, we have seen symbolic method of changing the file permission. There is also numeric method. So you have to specify three-digit number. The first digit will be for the owner, the user. The second digit will be for the group. The third digit will be for others. And you can use this integral value. 4 is for read, 2 is for write, and 1 is for others. So an example, I want to if I give chmod 640, the first digit, which is for the user owner, 6, which is 4 plus 2, 6. So read and write permission for the user, 4, that means just read permission for the group. 0 means no permission for others. Okay, so let's go back and I will create again a new directory, opt. Let's say web data. I'll create a directory named web data there. ls-ld/opt web data. First, again, I'll change the ownership. chown. I will give user AWS and group as DevOps. Okay, now I want to change the permission at once for the user, for the group, and for the others. And I want full permission for user, full permission for the group, and no permission for others. So let's check our document. Full permissions: read, write, execute. 4 plus 2 plus 1, that's 7. So we have to give 7 for the user, and then for group also we are saying DevOps group, read, write, execute. So 4 plus 2 plus 1, again 7, and no permission for others, so 0. And we give the path. If you want to do this recursively, if there are files inside that directory, you want to do it recursively, then use an option -r and it will do it recursively. Likewise, if I want to give full permission for the user, I'll say 7. For the group, I want to just give read and execute. So 4 plus 1, that's 5. And let's say I want to give read permission for others. So 4. Again, if you want to do it recursively or you don't want to do it, that depends on the situation. So numeric method is easy way or quick way to give permission for user, group, and others at the same time. Or if you're already comfortable with symbolic method, you can go with that. Numeric method with the numbers 4, 2, 1, and symbolic method with plus, minus, and the permission RWX. In this video, we will be talking about sudo or sudo, howsoever you want to call it. We have executed this command so many times, sudo -i, that will switch Vagrant user to root user. But it's only the Vagrant user that can do it, not any other user. We'll also test it now. But if you want, you can give any other user privilege to switch to root user or execute command with root privilege by adding the users into sudoverse file. So sudo acts like a power of attorney. On behalf of root user, some normal user can execute root commands or even switch to root user. So let's see how that can be done. So I will just log in, do Vagrant SSH, and we know it will log in with Vagrant user. So logged in as Vagrant user, but Vagrant user has privilege to do sudo, can do sudo -i, or can execute root commands. Like for example, I can do sudo yum install, let's say git. I don't want to see its output, so I'm just going to send it to dev null. Or you know what, let's see the output. So you see that's working. But if I do not use the sudo command over here, I don't prefix with sudo, I just say yum install git, it's going to throw me an error. Or if I try to add a user, it throws me an error. But I can do that by using sudo as a prefix. And that's happening because Vagrant user has privilege to execute sudo. Can also switch to root user by doing sudo -i. Now let's switch to any other user, let's say Ansible user that we have created in the previous video. And if this user is trying to do sudo, before this, let's set password for this user because we will need it. passwd Ansible. Okay, the reason why I set password for this user, you will know in a moment. So I switch to Ansible user. Right, we can do that. We are root user. And if I try to do sudo user add test1 2, so just trying to add a user named test12. Okay, it's asking me password for Ansible. Okay, it's asking me my own password as Ansible password, which I have already set. So I'm going to enter that password. Okay, it throws me an error. It says Ansible is not in the sudoers file. This incident will be reported. So that's an error. We can't do that. The Ansible user cannot do that. Can it switch sudo -i? It's asking password for the Ansible user again. And remember, this is the user password, not the root password. It cannot do. Okay, let's exit from this user. Let's clear the screen. Now I want Ansible user to execute sudo commands. So I have one simple way, which is I will run a command vi sudo. This command will open the sudoers file in the right mode. Well, let me quit again. Before I do that, let me show you the file. etc sudoers file. Yeah, that's the path. And you see, it does not have write permission even for the root user. So you can't just do vi and etc sudoers file. It's going to throw you error when you're trying to edit the file. And that's for security reason. It's done. You don't change the permission of this file. You just run the command vi sudo, which will open this file in the right mode in vim editor. There's really a lot of content in this file. We are looking for a user called as root. So search for root. Next. Okay, there. I'll set the line number so it's much visible. Right, so line number 100, I have the root information. I want to add the Ansible user, so I'm going to copy this line and just paste it and change that line for user Ansible. Okay, do not update that line number 100 that you're seeing. Just add a new line and save and quit. Okay, now let's switch to Ansible user. And from Ansible, let's now try to do sudo -i. Well, it's asking you password. Let's enter it. And ta-da! It's working now. But it's interactive. It's asking me password for my user login, the Ansible user. If you don't want that, which we'll not need when we are executing scripts in the background, I don't want it to be interactive. So I'm going to open vi sudo file again with root user. Search for Ansible. And I have to give an entry over here. No passwd : which means do not ask the Ansible user its own password when it's trying to do sudo. And let's save and quit this. Okay, now let's switch to Ansible user again. And now try to do sudo -i from here. You see, no password asked. Or Ansible user can just do sudo or do some root operation like adding a user. Let's try again, test12. And that worked. Okay, now exit from here. Okay, coming back to the root user prompt. So we have seen we have the etc sudoers file. We can update that, but if you make any syntax error in this file, I'll show you. Let's run vi sudo again. and I just put some content there. I made some syntax error and I'm trying to save it. So it will find that there is a syntax error in this file at line number 9, and it's gonna say what now. So you have to say E to edit it back. Right, go to that line number 9 and fix it, and then save and quit. So you see there is a chance of human error in that file, and that will lead to a non-functional sudoers file. So sudo command will not work then. If you save that file, the sudoers command will not work and you will be stuck if you don't have the root password, which most of the servers will not have the root password set for security purpose. You will have normal user login, like we have Vagrant user, you'll have any other normal user login, and then that can be switched to root by using sudo. So if you want to fix that sudoers file, it will be a problem because the sudo will not work and you don't have the root password. Sure, there are some other methods, but that will lead to more problems. So the better solution is, instead of editing that sudoers file, you go to sudoers.d directory, and here you can create your own file. You will see there is a file called as Vagrant, and it has the content. Like that, you can create your own file. Let's say I create a file for DevOps, and I edit that file. And I want to add the DevOps group in that. And when you want to add a group, you have to say % and the group name. % means the group. DevOps is a group and not a user. And you can save and quit. And now any user which belongs to DevOps group can do sudo. Or you can add really the username also there instead of group. So this is much safer option compared to directly editing the sudoers file. Sure, there are many more options in the sudoers file. You can give special commands for a particular user to execute, but that's all for now in sudoers. So practice this, make sure you get it very well, and once you're done practicing over here, join me in the next video. Software management, or in generally in Linux we call them as packages. So far in your life, you must have installed or uninstalled so many softwares on your Windows computer or Mac OS or your smartphones. In Linux, there are very different methods of installing or setting up a package or a software. We're going to start with very basic one, and then we're going to see different other methods of setting up software. So log into your Linux VM and switch to root user. And we are going to hit a command called as tree. Tree is a very interesting command. It shows the directory in a tree structure. Like if you want to see the var log directory structure inside that subdirectories and files, it will show it in a tree format. But it says command not found. And no, don't try to use yum here. We're going to see first a very manual way of setting up a package. So open your browser and we'll search for the tree package on the internet, download it and install it. So you can just say tree rpm and hit enter. And you should see various repositories, like there is CentOS package.org, and there's rpm find, there's rpm seek, there's rpm pbon. So there are so many repositories on the internet from where you can find and download the RPM. So I'll go with this RPM find for now. Let's click on it. So it's pretty simple here. You can make a search and you should find the RPM for tree. And there are many RPM based operating systems, like you have Fedora, you have Mage, you have OpenSUSE. So RPM packaging will be different for different flavors. We are looking for CentOS, so let's find CentOS. This is CentOS 8 and there is CentOS 7. So since we have CentOS 7, we have this RPM. I can click on it and it will download it in my local machine. But I want it to be downloaded in the Linux machine. So I'm going to right click, copy link address and go to my shell. And I'm going to use a command called as curl, which will be by default in your system, Linux system. You say curl and you paste the URL and you have to use -o So curl will access this link -o, saying that output of this link should be saved to a file, and you can give a name to a file. We'll give the same name as the RPM name and hit enter. Okay, if you do ls now, you should find the RPM in your current working directory where you executed the curl command. And to install it, we have the command rpm -i is to install, v is for verbose, that means printing it, h is human readable, so print it in a human readable format when you're installing. And you give the path of the RPM, and you will see, that quickly got installed because it's really a very small package. Now you can have the tree command, say var log. Okay, you can see now the directories in a tree structure. So that was just one example of installing an RPM in a Red Hat CentOS machine. And now maybe we are excited and we want to install more software. I am looking for a software or package called as HTTPD, which is a web server package. And we'll be seeing how it works, but right now we're just worried about installing it. So we'll find the right RPM for CentOS 7. That's there. So right click, copy link address. I do the same thing. I say wget, curl, and I paste the link. You can also use shift insert in git bash to paste. -o, just small o, and copy the name of the file and just paste it. Just select it, it will be copied. You do a middle click and it will be pasted. Okay, you should have the RPM now, and now let's try to install it. RPM -ivh HTTPD. It does not work. It says failed dependencies. It's saying that you need to install these other RPMs, and once you install this, then only you can install this HTTPD RPM. So there is a dependency. Now there's just 4 dependency. You can really find those, download and install them, and then you can install HTTPD. But what if you have hundreds of dependencies? Yeah, and that's the case so many times. Because in Linux principle, we understood we have small single purpose programs, right? Like HTTPD that are chained together to perform complex operations. So you will very, very regularly hit this dependencies problem, and that can be solved very easily. Like we have RPM, which can install the package, or you can even uninstall package. You have other package managers also, like Yum for Red Hat. But before we go there, let's see some more option in RPM. RPM -help. Like you have -e to erase, or you have -q to query. A is for all the files, like query or verify all the files. So let's see some option. RPM -qa. This will list all the RPMs. Okay, maybe you're looking for some RPM. If you want to see whether it's installed or not, you can just say pipe grep like tree. And if you want to erase that, you can say RPM -e, and then you can give the RPM name and it will be gone. Erased. No, tree command is not there. Okay, like that there are many options with RPM. RPM IVH we have seen to install, or capital U to upgrade a package. E is to remove or erase. EV -no deps, so it's gonna erase the installed package without checking its dependencies. QA to list all the RPMs. QI if you want more information, or QF if you want to find out what package a file belongs to. So you see some file and you want to see which package does this file belongs to. Okay, you can see RPM -QF or QC to list configuration of files for a package. That can come handy when you're doing some troubleshooting with package management. But the better option for managing your package is Yum. Yum. Let's see how that works. So as we go on the internet, search for RPM, download and install. Instead of that, you can use Yum, which will do all that for you. It will automate the process of package installation or management. So that it does by using some configuration file, yum .repos.d. In this directory, you should see some files. These files points to some repositories on the internet, like for example CentOS base repo. So it will have information of the repositories. So when you install any Linux operating system, you will always have access to some repositories. Okay, like this is one repository information, mirror list, and that's the URL. Okay, like that. All the files will have some repository information from where you can here yum can search for the software, download and install, and that also with dependencies. Okay, so like when I say yum search httpd, so I'm searching for a package named httpd in all those repositories. Okay, so there are so many packages that has the named httpd, like httpd devel, which is for development, httpd just like that, httpd manual, httpd tools, and many other packages. So if I want to install that, I'll simply say yum install httpd. So it turns out to be it's going to install httpd plus its dependencies also. So it's saying I'm installing these 4 dependencies and then this package. So download and install with dependency. And I'm good with that. So I'll say Y for yes. And that's it. It's installed. If you happen to remove that, you can just say yum remove httpd. And I'll say yes, remove that. So now downloading and installing is very easy. Just yum install and the package name. Okay, now let's say I want to install a package. Yum install, I'll say Jenkins. And it says error, nothing to do, because Jenkins package is not available in any of the repositories that are available here. So if it's not there, then you can always search for the internet. You should find the vendor documentation where they'll mention the steps to install a particular package. So let's take Jenkins as an example and let's search for install Jenkins. And I'm going to the official documentation, which is always preferred, jenkins.io, and it should have method of installing Jenkins in different environment. You have Linux, Mac OS. So let's click on Linux. So let's scroll down. You have steps to install it on Debian machine, which we'll be doing later. If you scroll down, it says install Java, method for Fedora, and Red Hat or CentOS. Yes, we found that. Okay, so these are the commands. So it's saying sudo wget. Wget is going to be working like curl, but first you need to have wget. So let's install wget first, and you can say that is the dependency for us. Yum install wget. So wget is already installed. So it's saying wget-o output should be in this file, and it's just accessing this link. Okay, a backward slash there means you can give it in the command in 2 lines. So let's copy that. So what this first command is doing, it is going to create this file with the repository detail. Okay, it created the repository details over here. Okay, nice. Now let's check the next command, rpm import. So there is a key. Sometimes you will have a key for a repository. So you may have rpm import command and a link. So this key will provide us access to this repository. And then yum upgrade it is saying, which is going to upgrade all the packages, which if you want to skip, because that's going to take a very long time. So it says yum install Jenkins and Java, especially JDK. Let's try that. So now Jenkins will be installed from this repository, and then you have Java that will be installed from our regular repositories. And I'm going to say -y. -y, so it does not ask me any question, yes or no. You see there are like 65 dependencies. Okay, so it says installing Java and then it's installing Jenkins. Right, so you see it's easy to do it with Yum, but then Yum should have access to the right repository to download and install your software. Right, so there is a command to directly create that file. Sometimes you will see instruction to open the file and put some content for the repository. Yum upgrade command, you see it's going to upgrade all the packages. If you run Yum upgrade, it's going to read all your packages and match it with the latest packages, and it will say there is an update available. So total 127 packages can be updated and one new package will be installed. And this is going to take some time, but it is always preferred to update all your packages because it may have security vulnerability or a performance issue that can be fixed by these new patches. And I'm going to say why, and it's going to take some time. Okay, so Yum search to search for a package, install to install a package. You have reinstall. Sometimes when you're installing, things breaks, network go down, right? And the package is not installed properly. You can always say reinstall. Yum remove to remove a package. Yum update to update all the packages. Or you can specify a package name, Yum update and a package name. You have group of softwares also, like you have development group. Okay, you can say Yum group list, it will show you group packages, and then you can, if you want to install group packages, you can say Yum group install and the group name which will install the group of packages. Yum repo list to list all the enabled repositories that you have access to. Sometimes you need to run this command Yum clean all, which is going to clear the cache of your repository. Yum history to see the previous history of Yum. Yum info, a package name which will give you information about a particular package. Welcome to this video. In this video, we will be talking about services that are running in your Linux system. Or if you happen to run your own service, how you can manage that. So we have installed a package HTTPD. Let's do it once again. Yum install HTTPD. And it's already installed. HTTPD is a web service and the package name is HTTPD again. So you see Yum install HTTPD, it will install the package, and you should have also a service named HTTPD now, which can be managed by systemctl command. Systemctl status HTTPD, it will show you the status. It says it's inactive now. If you want to start the service, you can say systemctl start HTTPD. And let's check its status again. It should show active. So you see here some processes running. These are process ID. We'll get into what are processes and process IDs in the next video. But really what it means to run a service means there are some processes running. You want to start the process, or you want to stop the process, or you want to restart the processes. You can use systemctl command for a service. So like start and stop, you also have an option of a restart. If you make some changes, configuration change to your service, you can restart the service so it takes effect. There is also one more option. Instead of restart, you can try reload to reload the configuration without even restarting the service. So we started the service and it's running, but it's just running. For now, if I reboot this machine while booting up, this service will not come up. I'll show that to you. Let's do exit and do exit, or I can just say reboot. So if you want, you can do Vagrant reload, exit out, do Vagrant reload, or from the system, you can say sudo reboot and it should reboot your VM. So before we reboot, you see the status was active. But after it comes up, let's see whether it's running or not. Okay, it's up. I have logged in. Let me become the root user. And now let's check the status. HTTPD. And you see it's inactive. So it did not come at the boot time. If you want to bring up a service at the boot time, then you have to say systemctl enable and the service name like HTTPD. Now the service will come up at the boot time. So enable is only for the boot time, but if you really want to start the service, then you have to say systemctl start and the service name. So far we have been doing SSH to this machine through Vagrant SSH, and there is actually a service called as SSHD. You can check its status. If this service happens to be stopped, we will not be able to do SSH. We'll get into SSH more in detail in shell scripting. Okay, few other commands you want to check whether a service is running or not. You can just run this command also, systemctl is active, and the service name, it says inactive because you see its status is stopped. You can say start. So we did enable, but we did not start the service. Now it's started. Okay, so you can run systemctl status, but if you just want to see whether it's active or not, you can say is active. Like is active, you also have is enabled. So which will tell you whether this service is enabled for the boot time or not. Okay, so the way systemctl really works is based on its configuration file. So for HTTPD, there should be a configuration file, and this got created when we installed HTTPD. Okay, so the file path is this: system/multi-user target.wants httpd.service. So when we say systemctl start HTTPD, it's gonna read this file and we'll see exec start, how to start. So this is actually the binary which it is running with some options and some arguments. So it really is going to run this command to start the HTTPD service. To stop, it's going to run that command. We'll understand what's a kill command later in processes. So this configuration file got created automatically when we installed HTTPD through yum. But we'll see other way when you just have a tarball, we download and extract it. We don't have a systemctl file to start such services, but we can create our own also. That we're going to do later. But that is all for now. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be talking about processes. So there are so many processes you will see running in the Linux system, running or sleeping. There is one command top which will show you all the dynamic processes based on their consumption of CPU and RAM. So this is similar to like a task manager, you have it on Windows, and it's a very helpful command. It shows a lot of information. It's going to show uptime. So system is up from past 9 minutes. This one user logged in, and then you have load average. Now load average is CPU wait time. It is different than CPU utilization. If the CPU utilization is full, then the load average will start increasing. And you see 3 values over here, comma separated. So this is the current minute load average. This is last 5 minutes load average. And this is last 15 minutes load average. So here processes are called as tasks. So there are 117 tasks total. Out of them, only 1 is running and 116 are sleeping. Yeah, looks like a very lazy operating system, but that's how it works. 0 are in a stopped state. There is a stopped state also for a process, which you can start by showing some command. 0 zombie processes. Zombies are the processes whose operations are done, but their entry is still in the process table. We'll see that later. CPU utilization is 0.0 currently, and then you see the RAM and swap detail, which is better to see through free-m command. Then you have the process ID, and you'll see these processes are really dancing. They're just getting sorted automatically based on their CPU consumption. So first column you see PID, process ID. Every process will have an ID. We generally call them as PID. User, which is running that process. So this is the process name, like top, systemd, kthread add. These are the process names. And these are the users that are running that process. So root user is running this particular process. And now this Jenkins running Java. So see, that's dancing, but we'll see other commands where we can really see all the processes. So you can see the status of the process. S stands for sleeping. And the CPU it's consuming, RAM it's consuming, and the process name. Okay, I'm gonna give Q to quit from here, Q, and I'll clear the screen. We'll see other command like ps aux. It is similar to top, but it displays the information on the screen and it just quits. Okay, so it's gonna show you all the processes, but you should see similar information as the top command. PID1 is the first process, which in new Linux systems is systemd. In older Linux systems, it's init. But in Ubuntu, it's still init. That's the first process in the Linux, either init or systemd. And this process is going to start so many other processes and will also handle so many other child processes as well. The process that you see in this square bracket, these are kernel threads. And you come down, and you should see some normal processes like httpd process. Okay, and you see multiple httpd process because httpd is running with say systemctl start httpd, which started these processes. Right, there's also sshd processes. So this is going to sort the process ID, and it's also going to display the utilization. It's going to sort as per the PID. Then you have ps-ef, which is going to show you all the processes again, but it's going to show you not the utilization, but the parent process ID. That's the extra information minus CPU and RAM utilization. So PID1, PPID, that is parent process ID, which was, which process that started this process. So there's a process ID 0 that started this process, but then you don't see a 0 process because it's dead. It's at the boot time. So if you scroll down, you will see httpd process, and I can say this process has started all these other processes. How? Well, check this out. PID is 1420 for this process, and PPID is 1. Then this process PID 1421, its parent is 1420, which is this process. Again, here also PPID 1420, 1420, 1420, 1420. So that's the parent process ID. So I can say that this process has started all these other child processes, which is also called as forking. Okay, so I have systemctl command. I can stop this process, but what if I don't have a systemctl command? Well, then how I'm going to stop a process? Well, there is a command called as kill. You know what? First, let's get this process ID. So we'll say ps-ef pipe grep httpd. So it shows all the httpd process, and plus it shows one more process, that's a grep process, and it's already dead. That was the grep command, and I don't want to see that grep process, so I'm gonna pipe it with grep-v, and I'm gonna say do not show me a process that has the word grep in it, or you can say color also, whatever. Okay, so I only see the httpd process now. Now if I want to stop this process, I can say kill and give the parent process ID, which is 1420, hit enter, and now you should not see those httpd process. So when I say kill, it sounds harsh, but it's actually more of asking this process, hey, can you please close your operations? So this process will first close all the child operations, and then it will close itself. So this is more of asking. But sometimes process becomes adamant and it does not listen, and you have to forcefully kill them. Systemctl start httpd. So let me start these processes. Let's search once again. Okay, so forceful is -9. You don't have to issue -9 every time because kill is better. But if sometimes that does not work, you give -9, which is forceful, and you give the parent process, but this time it's not going to close the child processes. This process will become orphan because the parent process has no idea that it's getting closed. Now you see these processes are adopted by the systemd process, the first process, and these are orphan process. Nowadays the systems are smart. This orphan process will get cleared automatically. But if it does not get cleared, then you have to kill all these processes. Now there are like 5 child processes or orphan process. But if you have many, then it will be difficult to do that. So we can use some filtering command here. So let's say it's still there. Clear the screen. Okay, it's still showing. So I'm gonna pipe that with awk, and I want to get the PID. So I need just the second column. So I'm gonna say awk in single quote, curly braces, print $2. Okay, I get the PID, and then I can pipe it with a command called xargs kill-9. Right, so all this PID will come as an argument to this command. So it's really a shortcut to kill all the processes. Systemctl start httpd. Let's start it once again. You see the PID of httpd process, and then you can pipe it again with xargs kill-9. So if you're issuing 9, then you make sure you do like this: filter it, find the command, find the process IDs, and then send it to kill-9 command. Okay, this is one more trick or tip. Okay, so you have seen the orphan process. If the parent process is dead, then the child process will be adopted mostly by the PID1, and these processes are called as orphan process. Orphan process will not serve much purpose, but it will still consume the resources. So it's ideal to clear the orphan processes, right? And to do it all at once will be better. So that's orphan process. Zombie process are easy to identify. They'll have status as Z in psaux command you can find out, and you will also see how many zombie processes are there. As their name says, zombies, dead, like we see in the movies, right? So process which is dead, but its entry is still in the process table. It does not consume resource, but it may create some problems. The best way to clear zombie process is to reboot your machine, but there are some other ways to refresh your process table also. Okay, so I'm going to quit here. All right, so we have seen very simple commands: stop, psaux, psef, kill command. And we have also seen how we can do filter of your processes and issue a kill command on it. So that is all in this video. I will see you in the next one. Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be talking about archiving. So there's so many times where you need to archive files and directories, especially when you want to take its backup, or if you have a backup you want to restore from that, or if you have some files that's coming from the internet or from somewhere else, it's in archive format, you want to unarchive it. So let's take an example. We'll go to var log directory, and let's say we want to archive all the logs, or let's say we just want to archive the Jenkins logs. Okay, there is a file Jenkins log. So mostly we do archiving of log files to move it to somewhere else, so we can clear the log files and save the disk space. So I'm in a var log directory, and I'm going to archive the Jenkins directory. So first we're going to see with tar command, tar -c tar -czvf. C is to create, Z is to compress. So archiving and then compressing it. V is for verbose and F is for file. And I first give the archive name. So I'm going to say Jenkins _ I'll give some timestamp .tar.gz, which is the extension. Tar represents a tarball, GZ represents it was compressed with Z option, gunzip. And then you give the path which you really want to archive and compress. So that's Jenkins directory. And you should see then, let's run ls-ltr so it sorts properly. So we see the tarball there, and this is called as tarball. And you can run a file command and see, even if it does not have an extension, you can run file command and see what kind of file it is. Right, it's gunzipped compressed data. Okay, let's see how we can unarchive it. So let's move it to temp directory, and let's go to temp directory. So that's my tarball there. I want to extract it. So tar-x is for extract, C is for create, X is for extract. And the same option ZVF. And we give the path. And then you should see the Jenkins directory there. If you want to extract it somewhere else, so you can use a -C, capital C option, and let's say I want to extract it at opt directory. So let's see opt directory. You should see the Jenkins directory there extracted. So tar is a very legacy, very old archiving command of Jenkins, and it is still used. There are a lot of options with it. Okay, it's feature rich tool. So the top you should see some examples of tar command. You can see all the options. You can compare two tarballs by using D, or you can update an existing tarball. You have more compression option. You can use -A for auto compress. There's -J to use bzip2, -J to use xz. These are other compression method, like we used Z for gunzip. You have bzip and you have xz also for compression. We have seen -C to mention the directory where you want to extract, and many more such interesting options. It's really feature rich. But much more simpler is really zip command. So let's do the same thing with zip command. Zip command will not be available, so you have to install it. So I'm going to say yum install zip and unzip both. And let's clear the screen. So same operation, I'm going to say zip -R. You have to give if you're compressing a directory or archiving a directory. And I say httpd://06/12/2020. It's a backup, or it's a tarball. I would like to give a timestamp, and then .zip, and then give the directory that you want to extract. Oh, not this one. I will extract the Jenkins _0612. Okay, any directory that you would like to archive. Okay, right. Right, so that's our archive, and same thing, let's move it to, and this time let's move it to opt directory. Okay, let's go to opt directory. Now you have existing Jenkins directory over here, which it will try to overwrite. I'm going to remove that directory, and I'll say unzip jenkins.zip. So unzip is just one zip. So you have two general methods for archiving, tar and zip, and we'll be using both in our course when the need comes. So that's all in archiving. Practice this commands, and I will see you then in the next video. Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be talking about Ubuntu operating system. So far, whatever command we executed, most of them will work on Ubuntu, except few. There will be some changes, and which we are going to see now. So for that, we will need a Ubuntu machine. So I will go to F drive, Vagrant directory, Ubuntu 18. I have the Vagrant file here. I'm just gonna say Vagrant up. If you don't have, say Vagrant init and the Ubuntu box name, and then do Vagrant up. Bring up an Ubuntu machine. Ubuntu 18 should be fine. Okay, the VM's up. Let me log into it. Vagrant SSH. Okay, I'm in. Let me clear the screen. So I will switch to root user here. So verify again. You're logged in as root user now. In home directory of the root user, you don't have any files here. And if you check the operating system, you should see it's Ubuntu, and you should see the version. So as I said previously, most of the commands will be same except few, starting with the command user add. There is user add command in Ubuntu. If you run this, you say user add, and let's say DevOps. So it does add the user. If you switch to that user, you will see some problems. So there's no home directory. Okay, so it just took you to the root directory if there is no home directory. So when you use user add command in Ubuntu, it will not create the home directory, it will not create the mailing spool, and so many other things. So I'm going to delete user del -r devops. So you see it says this no home directory found while deleting and no mail spool found, which you can specify. You can use with hyphen user add option. You have user add command with you have some options. You can specify the home directory, but the easy way in Ubuntu is to use add user command. Instead of user add, we have add user in Ubuntu. Let's do that, add user, and it's also passwd included with that. So it is showing you that it has created a user DevOps, created a group called as DevOps, and then adding DevOps user to DevOps group, creating home directories, and moving files from etc scale. So when you create user in Linux system, it will copy all the files from etc scale directory to user's home directory. And these are some files. We are going to see them in bash scripting. Next, it is also asking the password, so we can enter the password also. And we'll ask some other information like full name, room number, work phone, blah, blah, blah. Just keep hitting enter. And if you're good with this, just say yes, white for yes. Okay, now you should see the user DevOps. And rest everything is same. Passwd command, group add command, user mod command. Okay, so that's one difference from CentOS to Ubuntu. Add user instead of user add. The other one is vi sudo command. If you run, we know it opens the sudoers file in vi editor, but in Ubuntu, the default editor is nano. So if you hit enter here, it will open this file into nano editor. If you know nano editor, it's fine, you can use that. But if you don't know, you can just say Control X to quit. We want the default editor to be vim. So we can run this command export editor equal to vim. Now how this command works, export editor equal to vim, we're going to see that in bash scripting. These are variables, and this is setting variable temporarily on your current shell. If you log out and log in, you have to do it again. But now if you run vi sudo, it should open it in vim editor. There you go. Okay, and you can use :q to quit. So that's the second difference. Before running vi sudo, you run export editor equal to vim if you want vim editor. But if you log out and log in, then you have to do it once again. And we can make it permanent also. Again, we're going to see that in bash scripting. Okay. The main difference is package manager. So let's do the same thing what we did in CentOS. We'll download a tree package. So in your browser, just search for tree Debian package for Ubuntu. And you should see ubuntu.package.org, or you can look for other sites as well. And let's scroll down here. And you should see the mirror and binary package URL. So that's the URL. You can just copy that. And you can say wget, or you can do curl also. Paste that. So it should download the Debian package. And to install it, dpkg-i tree. Okay, now the tree command should be there. It's working. To list all the Debian package in your machine, you can say dpkg-l. And if you want to search something from there, you can say dpkg-l pipe grep and the package name. If you want to remove dpkg-r tree, it's gonna remove the package. That's manually downloading and installing, right? But as we have yum in Red Hat machine, here we have apt. So etc apt, let's get into this directory, and you should see a file here, sources.list. This will contain the repository information. Alright, so you have different URLs over here, and if you want, you can add any new repository information. But whenever you make change, or if you want to install any software in Ubuntu or any Debian machine, you run the command apt update first. So it will go and check all the repository for the latest package and create a list. You don't need to do that with Yum, because Yum will anyways search first, create a list, and it can refresh the list every 24 hours. But this is the place where Ubuntu or Debian really beats Red Hat system because of its software access. It has tons and tons of softwares which is available from so many repositories around the world. So you run apt update, you update the list, and then you can say apt search tree to search for a package named tree, and you will see so many packages which has the name tree. You can say apt install tree. There's also apt-get, which is older one. You can just use apt and hit enter. So download and install, and again with dependencies. So tree does not have any dependencies, but if you want to install package like Apache 2, which is same as H2DPD in CentOS, here we have Apache 2. Well, that is having some dependencies. It says these are the packages that will get installed, and it's also suggesting some other packages. If you're good, you say yes, and it will download the package with all the dependency and install them. So Apache 2 is a service, and in Ubuntu, if you install any service, it will start it automatically. You see Apache 2 should be already active and running. Q to quit, and it should be also enabled. So if you say S is enabled, it's also enabled. So if you want to upgrade all the packages in Ubuntu, you can say apt upgrade, and apt update is different. Apt update is just going to check the list and update the list. Apt upgrade will actually upgrade all the packages. So there's many packages to be upgraded. I don't want to upgrade it now, so I'm gonna say N. You also have apt remove to remove the packages, like Apache 2 you want to remove. There's also one nice option when you're removing it. Let's install this package once again. So we know apt remove is going to remove the package, but it will not remove the configuration and the data of the service or package. If you want to remove cleanly, like everything, you can just say apt purge, and it will remove the package with all its configuration and all its data. Okay, a clean uninstall. When you're installing or uninstalling any such services in Ubuntu, like Apache 2 is a service, it's a network service which will serve the web pages. It is also going to update the firewall rules. UFW is Ubuntu firewall. So these are some differences that we have seen. There are a few more different commands which we'll be seeing in bash scripting and cloud computing AWS, but that should be all for now. So practice these commands so you get hold of Ubuntu operating system also. That's all in this video. I will see you in the next one.
Completed this section thoroughly, a job well done. Now you must be already confident with the command line and with your Linux skills. Do not keep any doubt in the mind. If you think you are weak in any of the exercise, repeat it and redo it. Then continue to the next section where you will see so many fun activities. You will be hosting websites, you will be hosting blogs. So I'll see you in the next section.